Hi, everyone. Welcome to Let's Talk News. I was flustered for a moment because I was trying to upload the new intro, but I guess we'll do that tomorrow night. What a day! What a day! What a day! Um, it's news stories have been ridiculous. So much to talk about. We had Luigi Mangione, which we won't talk about today, but his fan club outside of the courthouse was remarkable and disgusting and horrific. Um, but we had Tyler Robinson arraigned today. We had the district attorney and attorney general talk about the charges against him. I don't know. Is arraigned the proper terminology? I don't remember. Well, whatever. They announced the charges against him, and we have a clip of that because I really want you to listen if you didn't get to see it. Not the whole thing because it was long, but some of it. Hi, Deb. Good to have you here. Hi, Mama. Great to have you with us. Hi, Susan Durema. Thank you for joining. So tonight I wanted to talk about all these people being fired for celebrating Charlie Kirk's demise. I think it's disgusting. I think that when people do that, and I don't care which side of the aisle you're on, and I don't care who the target was, when Nancy Pelosi's husband was harmed, you got genuine concern from the people on the show. And when Brett Kavanaugh was attempted harmed, we also gave sympathy. So we give sympathy both sides. And honestly, I think it's horrible that anybody would celebrate anybody's death. I think that it's horrible that anybody would celebrate silencing somebody for political differences. I find it hard to believe that people actually think this way, but it seems like more and more young people on the left are thinking that way. Polls are showing that about 55% believe it's okay to murder someone if you don't agree with them. Kinda, so crazy stuff. Hi, Lucille. The left set the standard for cancel culture. How do they like it now? Yeah, well, I don't know. Hi, Celia. Thank you for joining us tonight, Celia. Good to have you. So horrible and very sad. But the question is would Charlie Kirk approve? He was so adamant about free speech. Would he want his detractors to be canceled? Because he made his whole life's work that debate to get people thinking. And if you cancel people who are not thinking like us, do we cancel debate? So what do you think? Isn't this America? Yeah, it is America, but people are getting fired. And, I can understand private companies firing people. Listen, I was somebody who was targeted and they tried to cancel me. They didn't. Thankfully, I own my own company. But there were people who pulled out. I had clients who, pulled out. I had donors who pulled out who, were afraid, to be connected to me until the whole story came out. But they gave it their all to try and cancel me. These young people are so messed up. I didn't think about it before, but he was 22 years old. Now, my grandson was 20, is 20. And I'm just thinking to myself, if he was, my grandson's 20 and he was in the 9th grade when the lockdown started. So these guys were like in high school when the lockdown happened. And that's where they spent all their time on social media. Hello, Ramon. Thank you for joining us tonight. They've been so brainwashed. It's a disgrace. Yeah. And well, let me show you this first. I want to show you a short video. Of Tyler Robinson being arraigned, and I want you to look at him. I want you to look at his eyes, because no remorse at all. Look.
In that on September 10th, 2025 in Utah County, the defendant, Tyler James Robinson, discharged a firearm in the direction of Charlie Kirk, knowing or having reason to believe that Charlie Kirk may be endangered by the discharge of the firearm, and that the act caused serious bodily injury to Charlie Kirk. Victim targeting enhancement in violation of Utah Code Annotated 76-3-203.14 sub 2. Tyler James Robinson intentionally selected Charlie Kirk because Tyler James Robinson's belief or perception regarding Charlie Kirk's political expression. Notice, if the trier of fact finds beyond a reasonable doubt that the victim targeting enhancement applies, the sentencing judge or the Board of Pardons and Parole shall consider the defendant's selection of the victim as an aggravating factor.
He was side by side with his picture, and it looked like there was pictures on both sides. No remorse at all. Very, very scary. Charlie would forgive, but justice and business do have the right to employ who they want. Celebrating assassination is not who I want working for me, teaching my kids, etc. I agree. And that's where the quagmire comes in, right? I think that the private entities have every right to fire people if they believe that they are disgracing their brand or doing harm to their brand. I also believe government has the right to do that. And I think that, you talk about kids. I'm going to show you a clip in a minute about a professor who was teaching a political science class, and he asked the kids about the Kirk situation. You're not going to believe what she says. I got criticized for waving the American flag while on the road, and I smiled at the critics and told them I'm free and you're not. You're right. I mean, I think that the First Amendment, free speech, that amendment is more important for the people and the speech that we don't want to hear than it is for the speech we all agree with. Because if we pick and choose, I mean, look, they shut us up about COVID. They shut us up about the George Floyd riots. They shut us up, about January 6th. They shut us up about the Hunter Biden laptop. When I say they, I mean social media, right? Google and Instagram and Facebook. I mean, how many of us lost Facebook, YouTube pages, all because we were speaking about something that they were limiting, that the Biden White House did not want us to talk about. And we didn't like it very much. I just want to think about that. He looks like he's drugged, dead eyes. Yeah. And we know he's not, because he's been in custody for quite some time. It's been several days. Excellent. Exactly. No remorse, no emotion, no feelings, completely withdrawn. Also, I gave them directions to JFK Airport. That's funny. What was his reason? He didn't give one. He did. He didn't give one to police, but the district attorney actually read off some stuff, which I'm going to show you. Not at all looks so evil. He really does. Every charge can be backed up with evidence, 100%. Hi, Chris Santoro. Thanks for joining us. Man, these people have no morals for anyone that got killed. It's true. It's true that they have no, he doesn't have any remorse. And these people who think that it's okay to commit violence against people that you disagree with politically, they're multiplying. And that is very, very scary. They're all emotionally immature, brain damaged sociopaths. I don't think you're wrong. That's the Democrats for you. It's not just the Democrats, Chris. It's the left wing. And that's what's scary. I think he assassinated him for his lover roommate. Well, okay, I'm gonna show you this clip here. Hold on a second. All right, listen carefully. This is a long clip, but listen carefully to the conversation that he had with the roommate. Listen carefully to the conversation he had with his mother. It's all related by the district attorney, but watch. Let me see where it is. It's this one.
On September 11th, 2025, the day after the shooting, Robinson's mother saw the photo of the shooter in the news and thought the shooter looked like her son. Robinson's mother called her son and asked him where he was. He said he was at home sick and that he had also been at homesick on September 10th. Robinson's mother expressed concern to her husband that the suspect shooter looked like Robinson. Robinson's father agreed. Robinson's mother explained that over the last year or so, Robinson had become more political and had started to lean more to the left, becoming more pro-gay and trans rights oriented. She stated that Robinson began to date his roommate, a biological male who was transitioning genders. This resulted in several discussions with family members, but especially between Robinson and his father, who have very different political views. In one conversation before the shooting, Robinson mentioned that Charlie Kirk would be holding an event at UVU, which Robinson said was a stupid venue for the event. Robinson accused Kirk of spreading hate. Robinson's father reported that when his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news, he agreed that it looked like their son. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. Robinson did not respond. However, Robinson's father spoke on the phone with Robinson. Robinson implied that he planned to take his own life. Robinson's parents were able to convince him to meet at their home. As they discussed the situation, Robinson implied that he was the shooter and stated that he couldn't go to jail and just wanted to end it. When asked why he did it, Robinson explained there is too much evil and the guy, referring to Charlie Kirk, spreads too much hate. They talked about Robinson turning himself in and convinced Robinson to speak with a family friend who is a retired deputy sheriff. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it." Roommate, "How long have you been planning this?" Robinson, "A bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it." Robinson again, "I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't traced to me. I worry about Prince. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find Prince. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man?
Okay, so we have a lot of comments. I think assassinated him for his lover roommate. Absolutely, the left is nuts. It's the deep state. Trans militants are behind all of this too. I agree with that statement. Hello, lovely ladies. Hello, Tammy. He thought he wouldn't get caught and there would be no consequences. Yeah, he really thought he could outsmart the police. I feel sorry for his parents. So do I. So do I. Did you see Greg Gutfeld go off on Jessica Tarlov yesterday on the 5? It was epic. Yeah, I saw it. Howard, these days it's very hard not to get caught with all these cameras. It's the truth, Chris. This is a confession. Short trial, firing squad next week. I don't know about next week. Does a 22-year-old text in such complete sentences seem scripted? I don't know. There was a lot of abbreviations too, Kyle. That was just one area that I took out. So no question of guilt. It doesn't seem to be. On film and text message, dead in the water. Yeah. So today I posted that after watching that and hearing the conversations and hearing what happened with the mother and the father and the grandfather's gun, that I was heartbroken for his parents. And people came after me, what are you doing praying for his parents? And this just, and these are people on my page, so these are conservatives. And I'm saying to myself, how heartless can you be? If you're a mother and you see that your kid just committed such a heinous crime, your instinct is to protect your child. But at the same time, if you have a moral center, you know that what you have to do. You have to get that kid to turn themselves in. And that kid is going to face the death penalty. It was all over the news. And he was threatening to kill himself. I mean, what could she have been going through? And then talk to the father, and what was the father thinking? I mean, and the thing why I brought it so long was I wanted you to hear about him talking about what he didn't know what his father would do if he didn't bring back grandpa's gun. Now think about this. He just murdered a man in front of thousands of people. And he's worried about pissing off his father for not returning his grandfather's gun. Think about that. How screwed up could that possibly be? Because that at one point this kid had a moral compass. And even the roommate, I'm just not sure about the roommate. They're saying they're looking at the roommate because they think that he might have known sooner and he didn't turn him in. And so they want to ask him to be, they want to put him in as an accomplice, but I don't think so. I think that the roommate, the roommate was genuinely, I think, from the text messages, shooken up and shocked that this was happening. But there was a group chat on Discord with 20 people where he confessed what he did, and they didn't seem so shooken up. And that's where I think that he fell in with this trans sympathizer community. And we are seeing more and more that these groups of violent trans sympathizers are popping up all over the place. And they're telling people, trans people, or people that think they are trans, to arm themselves because people are coming for them. So it's pretty interesting. I agree. The parents must be devastated. The kids got indoctrinated by the dark web. It's not the parents' fault. They were on the opposite of his politics. Here's the thing is that he was 22 years old, right? So he moved out. So they raised him with a moral compass, and most kids have a different politics than their parents. My parents were libs. I was a conservative since as far back as I can remember. My parents were libs because my grandfather was a conservative. So my father didn't want to be like his grandfather. So that's not unusual, right? And I think somewhere in that exchange somewhere, he said that the more time that Trump was president, the more MAGA his father was becoming. So we know that at least his father was a conservative or was a Republican, MAGA. So their politics were totally different. But the moral compass is the thing. The kid was worried about what would happen to him if he didn't bring back his grandfather's gun. And I just keep going back to that. He separated in his mind that Charlie Kirk was not a human being. He was somebody that had to be disposed of. And he wasn't worried that he was going to get caught for that assassination. But he was worried that his father would be pissed because he didn't bring back his grandfather's gun. That happened in the same moment. Those feelings were occurring in the same moment. He had just killed a man in front of thousands of people, but his concern was his grandfather's gun being brought back to his father. That schizophrenia, I don't know what you would call it. I'm not a shrink, so I don't know. Let's see. I pray the other parents watch the kids more closely. But again, 22 years old, living somewhere else. What could you do? Lucille, Kathy went off to college. I mean, what, can you hold on to them, past the age of maturity? I mean, I check in with my grandson all the time, but he's far away. I mean, and what can you do? What can you do? Even when you see them going south, how can you stop them? They're grown adults. They're living on their own. There were people in other countries holding vigils for Charlie Kirk. Many, many other countries holding vigils. The roommate knew he was carving bullets, and this was a surprise. Yes, that's right. That was the commentary that he made. Remember when I was engraving bullets? Well, this is what it was for. He told the roommate. But I guess the roommate was in the dark about why he was doing it. I don't know if it was something he usually did. I think they both didn't like Charlie, but never thought he would kill him. Just my opinion. We heard a lot of different things out there, that the parents were all libs, that the father was a sheriff, which he was not. There happened to be a sheriff in the Utah, a retired sheriff in the Utah Sheriff's Department called Matthew Robinson, and so they thought that was the father, but that was wrong. Other people were saying that the guy standing on the stage was Robinson's father. That was wrong. Other people said it was the grandmother that turned him in. No, it was the mother. So it's you get a grain and you run with it, and nobody's got it right, and that includes the news media. News media was reporting it all wrong. There was definitely someone knew something was going on with him. I'm sorry. Well, the mother said that he'd become more political, and him and his father were butting heads a lot. A lot of kids, when leaving home and go to college or join groups of negative agendas, do get brainwashed. They're vulnerable. They are. They really are. I agree the parents are not responsible for a grown adult child of 22 that does not even live with them. Tyler's parents should not be harassed or threatened. The people who are no better than the people who were happy about Charlie's assassination. We are better than that. May those people never know the Robinsons' pain. They need to stop. Don't be like the far left, so filled with hate. The parents are not responsible. Praying for Charlie, his family, and the Robinsons. So sad. Robin, oh my God, you gave me, I don't know if you could see it, goosebumps reading that. The one thing is, and you almost brought me to tears because, Charlie Kirk, followed Jesus, and Jesus, in my heart, I know he right now is praying for them, praying for that family. I know he's even praying for this kid because that's who he is. And I bet you even Erica, through her anger, is praying for this family and this kid. I just know it because Jesus taught us to love our enemies, right? I mean, even on the cross, he said, Father, they know not what they do. We have to learn to have compassion for people, even bad people. The thing that bothers me so is that we've seen so many psychotic people like was DeCarlos Brown Jr., who stabbed the woman on the train in Charlotte. This man was having problems, bad problems, for his lifetime, and his family even said they couldn't handle him. There's a difference. To me, there's a difference between somebody that's pure evil always, we know those people who set kittens on fire and pull off legs of frogs and things like that, and kids that have become indoctrinated. They're so young. Oh my God, it's really heartbreaking for Charlie Kirk and family and friends. It's really sickening what has happened, and I feel so sorry for his parents that their son was so brainwashed by the evil media out there. Yeah, it's just, and I hope that everybody listens to Robin, because we can't fall into the same trap as the left. And, we can't cancel people because we don't like their speech, because that's what they did, right? They think it was okay to silence Charlie, but they didn't silence him. After he killed him, his emotions got affected. Thou shalt not kill affects you. You would think so. I'm not sure that he still feels remorse. I think that he compartmentalized this whole thing. Charlie believed and stated that there are only male sex and female sex, nothing more. Yes, and that's what everybody calls evil. I don't know. Carving bullets might be a red flag. Yeah. Well, but by another 22-year-old who believed he was a woman and was going to mutilate his body to become one. What about the guy who's doing the signals behind Charlie? I don't know what that means. So you got to expand on that. I think Turning Point gained something like 10 million more members since Charlie was killed. Yeah, I mean, they actually made his voice go louder and stronger. I mean, I don't know about you, but I am watching every Charlie Kirk video, podcast. I'm going back. I was never like a super fan for Charlie Kirk, but I admired him. I admired his brain. I admired his ability to debate. I admired his commitment to his religion and to his soul and to others. I didn't agree with all of the commentary he gave and how he gave it, but I thought that he was a brilliant guy. I mean, I think he had an eidetic memory. He was an amazing debater. And I liked what he was doing with Turning Point, because I liked the idea of making kids fight for their beliefs, and that's what he was doing. But now I'm a Charlie super fan, and I've donated to Turning Point. I'm doing everything I can to spread his word. I totally agree that my heart breaks for the parents. A horrible thing has happened to them, and to be the ones to have to turn them in. Robin, agree 1000%. That's what we are made of. We don't celebrate tragedy. I'm Jewish. I don't have to forgive him. I got you, Howard. 370,000 requests for new chapters. 37,000 requests. Yeah, and we don't even have that many colleges. But I understand. I was talking to a professor at CSI, and he was telling me that there were flyers all over CSI for Turning Point and for vigils for Charlie. It was good. Two guys in the video doing hand signals behind Charlie like a catcher does with the pitcher right before he was shot. There are videos all over. Yeah, there were videos all over of a bullet hitting his supposed what do you call it? Bulletproof vest that he wasn't wearing, and that's what killed him. I mean, the videos are not all correct. Instead of silencing him through this tragedy, his word is stronger than ever. Absolutely, Celia. I am as well. Yeah, just heartbroken for the parents. I admired him greatly. I donated to, she donated to something. Could have been president someday. We were robbed of a great man. Yeah, we were. But, maybe this was his calling. Charlie was a courageous man. Yeah, he was. High schools and colleges. Okay, I'm going to quickly play this clip. This is an interesting clip. This is this is the girl. Just watch. You're gonna lose your mind.
Another fear is maybe someone taking it upon themselves to handle his unfinished business, because I'm sure a lot of people that supported Charlie Kirk feel like, oh, he's gone too soon, he wasn't done, like the things he was pushing, he was making change. Other people may feel the need to echo him or carry on the rhetoric he was pushing, and I don't think that's beneficial.
So she's worried. She went on to say that, if other people pick up the baton and speak his language and carry his message, then the killing him was useless, because then it didn't have the desired effect. It was very cold and calculated. I couldn't show that part because there was a music in the background and it would have gotten tagged on YouTube. Okay, so why we came here. I want you to listen to this exchange. This is a guy who is defending the people who were fired for celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. Listen to him closely. It's interesting.
Welcome back to The Takeout. Free speech, social media, political rage, employment decisions, all colliding in the aftermath of Charlie Kirk's murder. Will Creeley joins me now. He is the legal director for FIRE. FIRE, that stands for the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, an organization that defends free speech. Will, where are we on this?
Oh, we are very busy, Major. Thanks so much for having me. We are living what seems like an inevitable and tragic cycle where the public loses someone, and instead of celebrating their free speech rights, we see this wave of condemnation and backlash to comments that some, many, or most find very offensive, but are nevertheless protected under the First Amendment. We're seeing lawmakers across the country calling for the termination of both government employees who have a First Amendment right to speak as private citizens off the clock. And also, we're seeing calls, even from the Vice President of the United States, to have people call private employers and have folks fired for saying intemperate or impolite or just plain unpopular things about Mr. Kirk.
Now, I have read, Will, and I will turn to you for guidance on this, that people in an employment situation do not have an absolute First Amendment right. That is to say, if the employer for whom they work believes there is reputational harm to a public utterance they make, they can be fired.
That's exactly right, Major. If you work for a private employer, that employer has a great deal of leeway to discipline you for comments that they find unseemly or otherwise at odds with the business's image. That's true. But in our country, where we have a culture of free expression, in addition to a First Amendment right to free expression, we should really think twice about making people choose between having a job and having an opinion. I'm old enough to remember when we saw this exact cycle play out after the tragic death, the murder of George Floyd 5 years ago. We had a lot of hue and cry about cancel culture. Can't we have a situation where people disagree about the meaning of a very public death? And in this country, we should be able to have that disagreement. We should be able to talk about it civilly. One quick point, Major. Mr. Kirk died engaging with folks who didn't share his political opinions. Per the reporting, he was answering questions on immigration and trans rights from folks who disagreed with him. In this country, if we're going to move past the deeply divided nation that we are, we're going to have to talk to each other. And that means not getting people fired because they hold a view that you don't.
I remember, as you do, what you talked about there, George Floyd. There were people who lost their jobs because they pointed out parts of George Floyd's past that were accurate, but that were uncomfortable in the context of his death. I believe things just like that have happened with Charlie Kirk, where people have been either threatened with suspension or firing, or suspended or fired because they pointed out something that Charlie Kirk had said or stood for in the past, separate from the heinous crime that took his life.
That's exactly right. And I'm afraid that's what's getting lost here. You know, children are without a father. A spouse is grieving the loss of her partner. I wish that folks would have kept the emphasis that they had on Wednesday of a man who was more than willing to mix it up with his political opponents in a civil way and not change the subject to trying to get everybody fired because you don't like their viewpoint. That's a disappointment. And I would have to think that Mr. Kirk, given his expressed interest in trading viewpoints instead of just trying to fire folks, he would be disappointed by this response.
Do you agree? Would Charlie Kirk be disappointed that people were being fired for reacting the way they wanted to his murder, and it was a murder? Um, that was the point of the conversation for tonight. Um, at the memorial ceremony Sunday, we were told CSI was starting a Turning Point Staten Island chapter. Yes, I was told the same. Look at the video yourself and look behind him. I don't ever want to see that video again, but I'm sure that whatever happened, his bodyguards were to the back of him, and the guy that was asking the question was asking the trans question, and who knew what signals were going. I don't know. I just know. I mean, to think that his bodyguards were conspiring, I don't buy it. They may have silenced the messenger, but they cannot silence the messages. They only made Charlie's words louder. I mean, millions of people in the streets of London, around the world, now with the name Charlie Kirk on their lips, and clamoring for free speech. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this today, because, these stories of people being fired are an aside, and I don't think it should be an aside. And I think we need to be careful, right? Because, too often it's, oh, well, they did it, so we have to do it. No, 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 no. If you are a strict constitutionalist, you will say, I will die for your right to, criticize me, if you really believe in America and what we stand for. Somebody at the memorial here on Staten Island said they're going to start a Turning Point chapter at Baruch College. I don't know the proper spelling. That would be fantastic. I was watching a comment by Candace Owen this morning. She was calling Charlie Kirk a king, but then she starts saying certain people better not try and take over Turning Point, or she's going after them. I don't know what happened to her. She's a little off the wall. I always said she was. She was never a favorite of mine. I thought she was an opportunist. I'm not quite sure, what sometimes power goes to people's heads. Something's wrong. Always was wrong with her. She just did not seem genuine to me. George Floyd changed everything here. Bullshit. He was a criminal. He was a criminal, but you weren't allowed to say it, right? We weren't allowed to say that. We weren't allowed to say anything negative about George Floyd. We weren't allowed to say that the protesters were burning down cities. It was a mostly peaceful protest. We were silenced. We were silenced during COVID. We were silenced during George Floyd. We were silenced after January 6th. We were silenced with the Hunter Biden laptop. We know what it feels like to be silenced. Do we want to now do it to them because they did it to us? Because then you just ping pong that precedent all over the place, and you're trampling on the Constitution and not killing people. Right. Well, that's because we have a moral compass. The difference between us and the far left that are socialists, the Mamdani crowd, the AOC crowd, the Bernie Sanders, the Elizabeth Warrens, what's her face that's losing her seat, the Nancy Pelosi's, the Chuck Schumers. The difference between us and them is that we believe in a higher power than ourselves. We worship a God, whatever our religions are. We worship and we respect each other's ability to worship or not. And we believe in something greater than ourselves. They do not. And that is the basis for every communist, authoritarian state, is take God out of it, take family out of it, take community out of it, and become narcissists and make everything self-serving. Does freedom of speech only work one way? Well, it shouldn't, right? That's the whole thing. When the ACLU protected the KKK, I mean, we were all appalled, but they did the right thing. They did the right thing. They had to. It's like unions, right? Unions aren't there for the people that do their job and have no problems. Unions are there to protect the people that can't keep up or won't keep up. Let's take down George Floyd statues and replace them with Charlie Kirk statues. Now we could do that. That should be done. Negative and cruel comments can constitute a hostile work environment, which is not acceptable in the work environment. Well, that's true. That's absolutely true. And that can be the complaint. I mean, I'm just saying, for the right to use that we were silenced as a reason for them to be silenced is hypocritical. And the one thing that I hope is that MAGA is not hypocrites. I hope that I'm a part of a group that, truly does believe in the Constitution and believe that everybody has a right to say what they feel. Nobody has a right to political violence, though. Just the language they use, a spouse who lost her partner rather than a wife who lost her husband. Well, that's just because they don't believe in family. But it's a very good point and a good catch. George Floyd held a knife to a pregnant woman's stomach. Real great role model. Yeah, but they forgot that because we weren't allowed to talk about it. That's the whole point, right? Nobody heard that because nobody was allowed to say it. That's why the statues went up. Debbie, got the correct spelling of Baruch. George Floyd riots were peaceful protests. They just burned buildings instead of candles. Very amazing, Howard. Charlie Kirk has put a fire in America, and what a great loss for all of us. The people who he touched is amazing, and he's with our Lord and Savior Jesus. Amen. Jesus was 33 when he was crucified. Charlie was 31. God has a plan. God has a plan. Maybe his job was done on earth. We were silenced. Yes, Letitia. That's why we are outraged. It's a frustration that it's now been unleashed because of what they did to us. I agree, but it's the result of them silencing us in 2016. I get it. I 100% listen to all people. I get it. I'm outraged. I want to do so many things, and I want retribution too. But sometimes retribution, and I have learned this, is to just shut up. Just shut up. And, because here's the thing. When an idiot is speaking, they do it for you because everybody sees they're an idiot. I mean, and that's what happened, right? They tried to off President Trump, and they tried to indict him, and they tried to throw him in jail, and they tried to paint him as a rapist and a thief and a bigot and all these things. And the majority of the country voted for him to be president a second time. That one in the middle, who knows what happened there, right? But we're not allowed to talk about that. The 2020 election, we weren't allowed to talk about that either. So what that tells me is that as all these lunatics are out there, they think that they're surrounded by people who agree with them because they're in an echo chamber. But once they're out amongst the real world, they get out of their bubble, they're going to realize that they're not in the majority. And that's the thing. I like the idea of the bench with Charlie skiing on it to be placed on campuses. That'd be a good idea. Yes, we must fight for speech of those who we vehemently oppose. I mean, it's otherwise, what are we fighting for? We are still censored. Yes, we are still censored. I still am censored. We can't say certain things. Forget it. Media said the note was touching, unreal. Yeah, I saw that. That's what they focus. I just can't. But again, socialist America, right? This is where we're going. And it's not, if you think that America cannot become a communist country, just look at England. I mean, what's his name? Kimmer, I can't even remember his name. The Prime Minister of England. He's a socialist. England, London. He's a socialist. I got my master's at Baruch. All right, Kyle. This has to play out. It does have to play out. Sitting, not skiing. Okay, that's better. I was wondering what that was about. Okay. All right. Listen, we're way over and we could talk all night, and I love your input. Remember, tomorrow night at 8:00, we're going to be talking about Carlos Brown Jr. And the murder of Irina on the train in Charlotte, and bail reform with the bail bond queen, Michelle Eskenazi, who will be live with us tomorrow. Thank you all for tuning in. I'll see you tomorrow at 8, I hope.